What's up, my fellow dorks? It is the Turtle Dork back again with a new review for you. So this week I have for you Kingsman, The Golden Circle. This is the second film in the Kingsman franchise, directed by Matthew Vaughn. I gotta say, I really did enjoy this second outing of this franchise. I'm a huge fan of Kingsman. I love Matthew Vaughn's style, and I love the take that he's brought to this property. So getting to the second film, the things that I really liked about it, I gotta say that the opening sequence was fantastic. Now this is something that we previously saw, or I previously saw, in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, and it went over well. I mean, seeing that opening sequence, which you've seen in the trailer, it's like the car chase scene with the fight scene with Eggsy and another character. I'm going to be very light on spoilers, just to be on the safe side, but with another character that we're familiar with from the first film. But it's so inventive, the way that he shoots this action sequence in a very tight, confined space in a moving car, and the way that he's able to do it, where it feels very spacious. It never feels like it's confined in those tight quarters, and I like that about that scene, and that goes for the entire film. I think one thing that is truly a standout in this film are the action sequences. The action sequences they're innovative, they're imaginative, and they're very distinct to this franchise. They're very distinct to the style of Kingsman, and I really like that about this film. Something else that I really enjoyed was the world building that they were doing in this film, where we get to see the Statesman, which is the counterpart to the Kingsman in the United States, and that includes Channing Tatum, Halle Berry, and Jeff Bridges, and also Pedro Pascal, I believe that's his name, and who is from Game of Thrones. We all remember him as Prince Oberyn, who had probably one of the most horrific deaths that we saw, but it was cool to see him in this film. But the Statesman, I thought, was a nice take and something new to kind of bring into this franchise. The only downside is that we don't really get a lot of the Statesman. They do kind of get sidetracked in the grand scheme of the plot and the overall story and the movie itself. But I think it was a nice introduction that I hope they really try to build on if they make a third film. I also appreciate how they expanded and kind of deepened the relationships that we see with a lot of the characters that we were familiar with in the first film. Seeing Eggsy with Harry Hart, Colin Firth's character, and how he's reintroduced, and seeing the relationship between the two of them really get stronger. The relationship between Mark Strong, his character Merlin, and Eggsy as well, they really continue that bond, and that really does grow. And Mark Strong continues to probably be one of the best characters in this franchise. I also like the relationship that he had with the other agent, Roxy. I thought that was really good. And Eggsy just does a great job. I mean, you really have to give a lot to Taron Egerton and his performance, and he is really bringing a lot to this character, and you believe him and buy into him, especially when he's interacting with these other actors, to really deepen those relationships and to make you invest and love these characters even more. Some of the things that kind of bothered me about the film, I gotta say that a lot of things felt repetitive from the first film. There's a lot of scenes, sequences, even plot details that are very similar to the first film. The most notable is really the villains and their plots as well feel very, very similar. Julianne Moore and Samuel L. Jackson from the first film seem like they are kind of the same character, with this whole thing about, worldwide devastation through like these different type of devices. Like in the first film, it was Samuel L. Jackson with the SIM card, basically, using a SIM card to have humanity destroy themselves. In this film, it's used in the same way, but it's with drugs, and that I felt they could have gone in a different way. But even with that being said, I like how they use those plot devices to really speak on a commentary about drug use, and the criminalization of drug use and the drug users, because there are a lot of functioning middle class people who are drug users, and should they be criminalized? I think there is a commentary that this movie, even though it's kind of goofy and cartoony, this movie gets. That's one thing I really kind of saw is the themes that they're really trying to explore in this. Even within the first film with the SIM cards and how we are so reliant on technology. So I think using the villain's plot to really kind of talk about a commentary that's kind of really going on in our world right now, I thought was kind of cool. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But also something else that felt repetitive was the sequence that we saw in the first film with Manners Maketh Man. The scene like in the bar in the first film with Harry Hart and Eggsy, they kind of do that. They kind of subvert that scene, but it's still done in the same way. And I thought that you could have did that in a different way and still really got the point across of what they were trying to do with Harry Hart's character. So that really didn't work too much for me. And then going to Harry Hart, I love seeing Colin Firth back in the fold with these characters and in this story. But I thought that his storyline, with what they did with his character, it felt a little muddled, and it was kind of uninteresting. And it really kind of slows down the second act of this film. I really wish they kind of would have gone in a different direction. I thought they were going to take their character in a different direction as far as the storyline that we saw. It kind of fit seeing what happened to him in the first film, but the way it kind of played out in this film, I really didn't like his story. Love seeing the character back in the movie, but his storyline, his subplot that they were telling in the story, for me, just really, really didn't work. Again, I mentioned the Statesman. I really want to see more of them. Channing Tatum, I thought in the small scenes that he was in, really was a standout, and they really could have used him a lot more. I thought in this film, he had a great opening scene. And then he has some nice comedic moments as well. I thought Halle Berry was really good, kind of being the Merlin of the Statesman, kind of being like the Q character from James Bond, and she really played that very, very well. I liked her character, and Jeff Bridges was good. Again, we just don't really get enough of them. All in all, I have to say that this was a worthy sequel to the original film. It's definitely not as good as the first film, but speaking on that point, I gotta say, like with the first film, and I rewatched Kingsman, The Secret Service, and there's something about it having a really fresh take on these kind of tried and true type of genres and the tropes of those genres. And I don't know, I think when that film came out, it just really caught people by surprise, and there was really no expectations going into it because we really didn't know what we were going to get with that film. And it ended up being, again, like I said, something new and fresh that we've never really seen before, or something different in that genre, similar to the way that Guardians of the Galaxy was. So when you come out with a sequel, now that those first films were really successful, critically and box office wise, it's kind of hard to kind of, bring that magic back, especially now when there are expectations going into this film. So even though this film doesn't live up to the first film, I feel like it's definitely a worthy sequel, and it's definitely worth your time to go check it out. So I guess with a score, I would probably give this a solid B. I give this an 80 out of 100. Definitely worth your time. Definitely worth going to check out in the theater. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts of the movie Kingsman: The Golden Circle. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Go ahead, rate, like, subscribe, and share, and go ahead and check out my other dorks at MouthDork, at the Disco Dork, and at Sidewalk Siren. And as for me, I am the Turtle Dork, and with that, I'm out.